Welcome, TESL students, to this step-by-step explainer. If you're looking to crush your final exam in educational psychology, you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're going to break down exactly how human memory works. And hey, don't sweat it if you feel like you know absolutely nothing about educational psychology right now. I'm going to explain these lecture notes in simple, everyday English, taking it step by step. We'll use real classroom examples so you can picture everything perfectly in your mind. My entire goal here is to help you easily tackle those multiple choice and short essay questions so you can walk into that exam room with total confidence. Let's get started.
Real quick, here's our roadmap for today. First, an intro to human memory. Second, the Atkinson-Shiffrin model. Third, types of long-term memory. Fourth, strategies for remembering. And finally, the levels of processing.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, Intro to Human Memory, the Basic Questions.
To pass your exam, you really need to understand that memory isn't just some static bucket sitting in the brain. It's an incredibly active process. We're always asking three basic questions about it. First, how does information actually get into memory? Second, how is it maintained? And third, how is it pulled back out? Imagine a student in your classroom hearing a brand new English vocabulary word, like apple, for the very first time. Getting that word into their mind, that's the input. Having them remember it until tomorrow's class is maintenance, and having them confidently say apple when you hold up the fruit, that's retrieval.
So the main idea is that memory is all about the journey of information. Understanding this timeline, input, maintenance, and retrieval is your very first key to passing the exam. Moving right along to Section 2, the Atkinson-Shiffrin model, also known as information processing. Here's a crucial definition you'll need: the information processing theory. This has literally been the dominant theory of learning since the mid-1970s. As a future teacher, you absolutely need to know this because it explains the exact step-by-step process of how information is absorbed. Because once you know how the brain actually absorbs info, you can use that to help your students retain those critical language skills.
Think of this as the ultimate journey of a new English word. It starts with a stimulus from the environment, like you, the teacher, saying the word out loud. That immediately goes into the student's sensory memory. Now, if they actually pay attention, it moves to their short-term memory. And if they practice it through rehearsal, boom, it finally lands in long-term memory. But here's the catch. If information isn't transferred to the next stage, it's completely lost.
Now listen up, because this is a goldmine for easily answering tricky MCQ questions. We're going to compare the duration and capacity of these three stages using a point plus explanation approach. Point 1, the sensory register. It holds a huge capacity of info, but only for up to half a second for visuals. If students don't consciously pay attention, it vanishes instantly. Point 2, short-term memory. It holds information for a little longer, up to about 30 seconds, but it has a strictly limited capacity of just 5 to 9 units. Point 3, long-term memory. This is the ultimate goal. Its duration is relatively permanent, and its capacity, totally unlimited.
So the main idea is that attention and rehearsal are the essential bridges moving information between these three memory stages. Without attention, the info never leaves the sensory stage. Without rehearsal, it never leaves the short-term stage.
Let's jump into Section 3, types of long-term memory, the memory tree.
You know, long-term storage isn't just one giant, messy room where memories are dumped. It's actually a highly organized filing system, broken down into distinct, structured branches. Knowing these branches is a fantastic way to secure marks on a short essay question. Let's break those branches down clearly. Long-term memory splits into two main types, declarative and procedural. Think of declarative memory as knowing what. This splits into two subcategories: episodic memory, which is remembering personal events, like your very first day of school, and semantic memory, which is remembering facts and concepts, like English grammar rules. On the flip side, we have procedural memory. Think of this as knowing how. This is remembering how to physically perform a skill or action, like exactly how to hold a pencil or form letters on a page. So just remember, declarative is for facts, and procedural is for skills. So the main idea is that long-term memory is categorized by the type of knowledge being stored. Remember, declarative is the what and procedural is the how. Keep that distinction clear and you will easily secure those short essay marks. All right, Section 4, strategies for remembering, helping students retain. As a TESL teacher, you don't want to just cross your fingers and hope students remember things, right? You need to equip them with the right tools. Here are 4 concrete strategies you can easily list out on your final exam. Let's look at these 4 steps with some simple classroom examples. Step 1 is chunking.
Remember how we said short-term memory only holds 5 to 9 items? If you give a student a list of 20 random vocabulary words, they're going to fail. Instead, chunk or group them into 4 smaller, manageable lists of 5 words. Step 2 is understanding. Pure rote memorization fades fast. Making sure students actually comprehend the underlying rule makes it stick. Step 3 is visualization. Try having students draw a picture of the new word. And step 4 is writing. The physical act of writing the word engages completely different parts of the brain to heavily reinforce the memory.
So, the main idea is that remembering isn't an accident. It requires specific, actionable strategies in the classroom. When you use chunking, understanding, visualization, and writing, you are directly helping your students bypass the strict limits of short-term memory.
Finally, we've reached Section 5, the levels of processing, deep versus shallow.
The levels of processing theory reveals a massive secret in educational psychology. Memory isn't just about the time you spend on something, it's about depth. Information that's processed deeply is retained far, far better than information processed shallowly. Let's do a direct point plus explanation comparison to make this perfectly clear. Point 1. Shallow, structural encoding. This emphasizes just the physical structure. For example, asking a student, is this word written in capital letters? That's incredibly shallow. Point 2. Deep, semantic encoding. This emphasizes the actual real-world meaning of the input. For example, asking, would this word fit correctly into this blank sentence? You can instantly see why focusing on meaning is infinitely better for a student's memory than just looking at the physical spelling of a word. Let's apply this to a super common everyday classroom example using the simple word pen. If you ask a student, how many vowels does it have? That's shallow perceptual processing. If you step it up a notch and ask, does it rhyme with 10? Well, that's intermediate phonemic processing. They're analyzing the sound. But if you ask, is it an object used to write? You are forcing deep semantic analysis. They actually have to think about what the word means in the real world. So the main idea is that semantic processing, which is thinking about meaning, creates the absolute strongest connections for long-term memory retrieval. I'm going to leave you with this final thought to really spark your curiosity. If we know as a scientific fact that deep semantic processing creates the most permanent memories, how will you redesign your next English lesson to ensure your students go far beyond just shallow memorization? Keep that in mind as you head into your exam, and more importantly, as you head into your very own future classroom. You've completely got this. Good luck on your exam.